Everybody, it's Notably Nancy here, Nancy Mazo, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to our community. Today I'm going to give you a really easy recipe and actually show you how to make it, pita bread. And I'm talking about this is an easy, no-fail recipe, probably with ingredients that you have in your house. Even if you've never baked bread before, you will have success with this recipe. Okay, if you hear me say during the video pitote, pitote is the plural for pita bread. Okay, so pita, pitote, pocket bread, we're all talking about the same thing. Okay, so let's jump into it. First of all, I want to talk to you about what items that you need. And the other thing I want to say about this recipe is it's baked from scratch. It's so easy and it's really healthy. It's so much healthier than buying bread, commercial bread at the store with all the additives and preservatives and chemicals. Okay, so what we are going to need, the ingredients we need for this pita recipe are right here. Okay. In European measurements, I say a kilo of white spelt flour. Okay, you could use regular flour, you could use whole wheat, it doesn't matter. I use spelt, it comes out really nice. A kilo converts to 8 cups of regular cups of flour in the United States. Okay, so you've got 1 kilo of flour. We'll also be using 5 cups of water, and water should be lukewarm, okay, not hot and not cold. A 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of oil, 1 tablespoon of regular salt, 2 tablespoons of yeast, and you can put in 1/4 cup of ground flaxseed. I found this at a, what do you hear you call it, what? Wasn't a hardware store. Oh, like the dollar store, like my cameraman reminded me. But this bowl is like the greatest, okay? It's big enough and it has a top. Okay, and this is what I'm going to use to mix up my ingredients. And this is where the pita dough, the pocket bread dough, is going to rise. This is so easy. And I want you to write down in the comments if you think this is complicated, because I bake all kinds of bread and this is my favorite go-to easy no-fail recipe. That's why I'm sharing it with you, because the last thing that I want to happen is for you to say, whoa, I wanted to do something relaxing and it ended up being this whole big, yucky, frustrating mess. Okay, that's not the idea here. So let's get to it. Okay, first I've got my flour. This is spelt flour and it is pre-sifted. Okay, if you don't have pre-sifted flour, I would suggest that you sift it. It will just make your pita or pitote lighter and fluffier. 1 kilo of flour, I dump it into the bowl. How easy was that? Okay, I want to make sure I get all of it. Level it off. Okay, I have a tablespoon of regular table salt. Okay, I don't measure it because I've made this so many times. I just kind of put it in the palm of my hand, about this much, and sprinkle it in. You can measure it. Okay, a 1/4 cup ground flaxseed here. Okay, and I'm estimating here that could be a little more than 1/4 cup. I'd say about this much. I sprinkle it in. The thing is, it will thicken the dough. Okay, 1/4 cup of sugar. I even put a little bit more. You could use less processed sugar, but like I said, this is just what I had in hand. Now I'm reserving a little bit of it and I'm going to show you my, as they say in Hebrew, patent, my little trick of how this comes out great. Okay, what I do is I make a well in the middle here. Okay, this is where my yeast is going to go. I could do it with the bottom of a measuring cup. I could do it with a spoon, and you can see some sugar is here because the yeast needs to proof. Okay, now we're putting in 2 tablespoons. This is dry yeast. I open the vacuum pack thing and I keep my yeast in the freezer. Okay, because we want it to be fresh. Okay, 2 tablespoons goes into this well. I reserved a little of the sugar. Okay, I'm putting it like on top of the yeast. And like I said, my water is lukewarm, okay? Not hot, not cold. Okay, I'm going to pour a little bit into the well, okay? And that's going to give the yeast a chance to proof, and you'll see it as it goes bubbling up. We want to wait for that to happen. Okay, also, we're putting in a 1/4 cup of oil. This is canola oil. You can see already it's bubbling. Okay, that's what we want because that means the yeast is being activated. Okay, a 1/4 cup oil. And I have pre-measured my water and I'm just pouring it in. Okay, just easily pouring it in and around. Okay, and that's the whole thing. Now I'm just taking a spoon and mixing it up, and you will see that it is a pretty watery dough. Okay, you see the bubbles there? That's the yeast working. Okay, I'm mixing the dough. Now I see that because I added the flax seed, it's not as loose as it usually is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and like I said before, this is a really forgiving recipe. Okay, I put 5 cups. Now the other thing that affects this is the weather. Okay, we've got unseasonably snowy weather here. Okay, so I'm going to get another cup of water and I'm going to add it in slowly so that I get the right consistency. Okay, I've got another cup of water here. I'm not dumping it in all at the same time, okay? I'm going to kind of put about 1/4 cup into it and then mix it, because you'll see in a minute I'm looking for a certain consistency here, and what changed the consistency was the ground flax seed. But you see on the bottom there's still like quite a bit of unmixed flour. Okay, you could do this in a mixer, but really you don't have to. Okay, I'm adding, so far I'd say I've added another 1/2 cup of water. Okay, and I'm mixing it. You see it's like a science experiment, like what's gonna happen. This is about the consistency. You see it's like, it's a very loose dough, okay? And if you're making it for the first time, you might not realize, you might think, uh-oh, what happened to this? Something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. This is the way it's supposed to be. Okay, now, all I do now is I put the top on, okay, and I want to put this in kind of like a not drafty place, a warm place, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Now here I'm between classes. I'm just going to set it aside. Now I want to talk to you about what toppings, what spices that we will use for making the pita bread that you'll see in this video when we actually do it. But I want you to think about having these on hand or getting them ready. Okay, the first thing that we have, okay, this is a Middle Eastern spice called za'atar. Okay, and it's a za'atar, it's from a za'atar plant, and you could see the sesame seeds in it also. So anyways, this is the za'atar with sesame seeds, and I think you could find it, if you can't find it like in the grocery store, maybe in a store that sells Middle Eastern spices. or a health food store. They're toasted sesame seeds, and they just give it a nice crunch and a nice flavor. You might want to use, this is granulated garlic. I recommend it instead of the garlic powder because the garlic powder doesn't really give the same oomph. Okay, and sometimes I put paprika, sweet paprika, sprinkle it on top for the color. Okay, this is how it looks. And my two secret ingredients that will really make your pita pop, okay, are I always sprinkle a little bit of kosher salt, okay, on top, and you'll see when we do this. And those are the spices I use, but you could use any spices that you love or your family loves. Anything is yummy on it depending on what you like, okay? The other thing I do first on top of the pita that you'll see before I sprinkle the spices on, I brush olive oil, okay? And I put olive oil on top of the pita and spread it with a spoon. You'll see that when we do it, and then sprinkle the spices on top. But I wanted you to have a heads up of what spices that we'll be using today. And let me know in the comments below if you make it and you use different spices, because wow, you could use any spices that you love and they could be fantastic. Okay. See you in a couple hours after our dough is ready to bake. Okay, so here we are. We've waited a little bit less than the time I would have waited, but I'm coordinating my pita or pocket bread between classes. Okay, so I want you to see I'm taking the cover off, and this is how it looks. Okay, you can see the bubbles on top, and these brown specks are the flax seed. Okay, what I'm going to do is mix it, and again, look at how loose this dough is. I've preheated the oven in European measurements to 180 Celsius, which is about, by checking on this, I think 350 degrees. We've talked about the spices, and I'm going to show you how we put them onto the pita. Okay, here's what we need to make the pita. I have a cookie sheet, and very, very important to put a piece of baking paper on it, because even if you're using non-stick cookie sheets, you'll want the baking paper. The other thing I did, I put the olive oil in a little bowl, and I'm going to be spreading it on top of the pita with this. The other little trick here is I have a bowl of just regular water that I keep on the side of what I'm doing, because this dough gets really sticky, and sometimes I need to put my fingers in the water so that the dough won't stick. You'll see that. Okay, here we go. I make 6 pita on a tray. And remember, like I said before, it's very sticky. Sometimes what I even do before I start is I put my mixing spoon into the water. This helps the dough not to stick. Okay, this is the part where I'm putting my fingers in the water a little bit so that they can help. I take a spoonful. Okay, here's 1. 2. You see how this dough is, okay? It's not like a butter cookie recipe dough. It's pretty wild and woolly to work with. Okay, I'm dipping my spoon in the water again. You want to try to get them all a uniform size, but it doesn't always happen. Okay. Number 1, I'm spreading the olive oil on top of the dough. Next, I'm going to put a sprinkle of kosher salt onto each of the pita. Next, I sprinkle the toasted sesame seeds because we're making them 6 at a time. I had some left over. Put it in here for the next batch. Now I'm sprinkling the granulated garlic onto it. Here's the za'atar that we talked about before. Again though, you can use any spices that your family enjoys. And as you can see, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of paprika just for the color. Okay, these are ready to go into the oven, and the tip that I want to give you is they're going to be in the oven for 15 to 18 minutes. And the first batches that you put in take longer to cook than the subsequent batches. Now the other thing that I would say is, and I learned this the hard way, it's really important to babysit these while they're in the oven, okay? Because otherwise you can walk away from it and come back and they could really be overcooked. And what we're going to do after that is we'll put them on this baking tray. They'll cool, and then I freeze them in batches of 8. Okay, usually the 1 kilo recipe of these size pita make about 32. So you really have, you know, a way to stock your freezer and be ready. Oh, middle rack, and just put in 1 tray at a time. If you try to do 2 trays, they'll cook unevenly. 20 to 12, time for my class. Okay, so I have to be truth in reporting. Only 10 minutes has gone by. I just checked these pita and they look like they're ready. So I'm going to take them out, and if you'd like a recipe that I'll make a fancy copy of in Canva and send to you, please contact me at notablynancy@gmail.com. Okay, let me know how your baking goes, and see you again next week. Bye! Here come the pita.